at the Institute of Health System Science. I'm affiliated with the company Northwell Health. We are a hospital system within the state of New York. And today I'll be talking briefly about how we can potentially reshape clinical trials and patient caregiving with wearable device data. So the quick agenda for today's talk is that I'll briefly mention what N-of-1 clinical trials are. This is the basis of where wearable devices actually come into play, and what our own clinical trials and how we conducted them. I'll briefly talk about the outcomes and then the points that we've learned so far since actually conducting our clinical trials and how we hope to move forward. So you might be wondering what N-of-1 clinical trials are. Another term for this is personalized trials. So personalized trials actually kind of focusing on a patient-centered approach on an individual level rather than as a sample population. So currently a lot of physicians use a trial and error medicine kind of technique where it's a one-size-fits-all. It's very generic. If the treatment works for a large substantial sample size, you'll essentially suggest a treatment for everyone that falls into that category. For personalized trials, we want to kind of focus on that individual patient. If they have unique properties, we want to make sure we tailor the caregiving approaches to their needs compared to the general, like one-size-fits-all model. So you might see here, I mentioned the single patient multiple crossover design. For clinical trials, these are essentially research projects that we've conducted. And this focuses on exposing our participants to different treatment arms. So you might see like here, A, B. So in different points of time throughout the clinical trial where we are collecting data, we are exposing them to the treatments in separate times throughout the process. And throughout that process, we actually do request them to wear their wearable devices that we provide for them. So for our clinical trials, we actually suggested Fitbits. We did have some participants reach out to us saying, hey, what about Apple Watches? We have just started launching that as well. But from here, we actually collect a lot of physical data, heart rate information, and sleep duration kind of data from there. And then once we've finished the data collection process, we go through rigorous statistical analysis to be able to provide shared decision-making with either the physician or the participants of the clinical trial. With the physicians, the aim is to actually provide some tool sets to help them to be able to provide better care for their patients. And for participants, if we directly connect with them, is to give them a little bit more autonomy on what treatments they would like to try out. So wearable technology, I know a lot of people here probably have their own type of wearable technology. I have a Fitbit, some people have smartwatches. I know the trend recently has shifted to like Oura rings and Whoop. So there's a lot out there in the marketplace. The reason why a lot of clinical trials have started focusing on these devices, we call them digital health technology, is because a lot of people kind of want to stray away from the artificial research kind of setting. So previously, if we had like office times for patients to come into the research office to collect data, we want them to be in a more ecologically friendly environment. So just their lifestyle patterns. Their everyday lifestyle will probably reflect their actual like physical activity levels and their heart rate measures more accurately than in an artificial setting. These are just some basic statistics of how many people just have started wearing their own wearable technology. So with the wearable technology, we will be able to shift from this one-size-fits-all or the stratified treatment methods to a personalized kind of caregiving or personalized trials. We'll be able to provide better treatments to patients. So for our own clinical trials, we wanted to generate a tailored presentation of trial results for participants. So we basically suggested a treatment that might best fit their own needs from the data we collected from their wearable technology and survey responses. Secondary analysis we conducted was to determine treatment effects on an individual level. But for today, I'll focus on the satisfaction that participants provided us with from their results. Throughout the entire process, we conducted 4 different N-of-1 pilot trials. So pilot trials are kind of test research projects before we launch a full-scale version of it. So we launched 4 different ones, so chronic lower back pain, fatigue, sleep duration, and stress management. So these are generic chronic health concerns. A lot of patients can come in for hospital visits or report symptoms of having with 3 different interventions or treatments. So one was like, for example, for fatigue, we provided them with smart glasses on top of their Fitbit devices, where the glasses would provide dim light or bright light settings, or just no light at all, and we would be able to collect the data from those glasses to be able to kind of measure how well the treatment worked for them. This is just the inclusion and exclusion criteria. The reason why we do this when we recruit participants is just to make sure we're avoiding any potential adverse effects. So with someone who has like back pain, chronic lower back pain study might not be the best for them, just because we don't want to risk them hurting their back anymore. And then the inclusion criteria, you might see that we requested them having a smartphone to be able to connect with the smart technology that we provide for them, and an email account that we can reach them out to with those study results. This is just a generic overview of our workflow. We did a baseline data collection period of 2 weeks before we randomized them into 2 different treatment arms. So the treatment arms, they differed in when the participants were exposed to certain different interventions. And then once the baseline period ended, we actively started them on the interventions that we provided them with. They were provided video materials and other educational materials to be able to follow along. Once that happened and the data collection was done, we provided them with a report of their own results and just only theirs. And then we asked them to respond to satisfaction surveys and then follow-up interviews. So here you might see the 3 example pages of the reports that someone might receive. We focused on the visual aspects just so that it was very easy for them to understand their own results. A lot of the data that we did collect, like I mentioned, were from the smart wearable devices such as Fitbit or the smart glasses, and then a lot of self-reported surveys. So the Fitbit data and the smart glasses data, we collected on a daily level and minute level basis based off of what measures we were looking at. Heart rate, we focused on the minute level. Steps, we kind of focused more on the daily level just because we didn't want too much granular data. We also collect what we call ecological momentary assessments. These are just kind of the sample measures that you might look at for those ecological momentary assessments, and it's like a 5-point scale on how they treated their own like concentration or confidence levels, things like that. The data was stored and it was cleaned right after their data collection period ended. This was done in batches as participants were actually recruited in batches as well. And then once the data was cleaned, data analysis and visualization steps were done right afterwards. We actually did this all in R for the data analysis and visualization, mainly because the generalized least squares regression analysis was actually stronger in R for biostatistics purposes, and the PDF reports, we could do more customization in R compared to Python. Now, for our own outcomes, we focused on the participant satisfaction levels. We did a 10-item questionnaire called the System Usability Scale, or the SUS for short. A majority of our participants said that at least it was acceptable or excellent for the effectiveness of the end of one clinical trials, and they appreciated the use of the Fitbit watches. You might see a little bit more data points under stress study. This was because we recruited 112 participants compared to the standard 60 that we did for the chronic lower back pain, fatigue, and sleep duration studies. Now for the satisfaction scores with the presentation of the results, this was their rating for the PM results that we shared with them with the suggested treatments. More than half responded that they were somewhat satisfied or very satisfied with the results because it was easy to understand. And if I went back to these kind of example pages, you might see this adherence page. This is where a lot of participants were actually really satisfied with, because we emphasized that a lot of the suggestions that we provided or any of the results that we depicted heavily relied on how much data we were able to collect from them. And this is actually very important for a future slide. So the major learnings that we did get from these pilot trials was the data collection and storage methods. This was a big learning process for not just the data team, but also for the research coordinators, mainly because we started out with almost 0 data professionals in this team. I was one of the very first few that got onboarded, and it was very much a landmine of .csv files everywhere, Excel files. everywhere, different computers, different local files, and we had to come up with a proper data workflow. And the same was done with the data cleaning methods. A lot of our research coordinators were actually cleaning the Excel files by hand per participant. So you could imagine that would take a lot longer than when we do it with code. Report generation, same thing. They were doing it in PowerPoint by hand per participant. So we had to figure out a better way to automate this entire process. What happened was we started transitioning from manual cloud storage where people were dragging files into the cloud storage to data lakes. So we've actually become clients of Databricks. So we've been following with how to automate things, and it's been a lot better. We were able to reduce time and increase efficiency with a better workflow as our data team increased. So how we hope to move forward, we've been slowly making our way to the open source community. We call it the Open Science platform. So Open Science helps us to increase research transparency, reproducibility, and reduce research waste. With that, when we post anything in the open source community, we do have to follow the HIPAA guidelines and de-identify everything accordingly. The previous presenter did mention data governance, and that's the biggest thing that we have been dealing with so far. We have a lot of personalized private health information, that we have to deal with, especially with the Fitbit devices and the other wearable devices. There are a lot of things that we do have to clean up, so we are not able to share the full scale of the data, but we are hoping that with the large amounts of data we have been continuously collecting from other trials as well that we utilize smart wearable technology with, we are able to kind of strengthen that as well. Currently, our team is building a web page highlighting our pilot trial studies with this data. So far, we've published this chronic lower back pain and the fatigue study data. We are, as of yet, able to publish the sleep and stress because that has not been shared with Open Science as of now. Now, the biggest focus for us comes with the future opportunities that we might be able to do. We have potential kind of, with the large amounts of wearable data that we have been collecting, it's not just those 4 pilot trials, we have been conducting other trials as well with other hospital sites to be able to kind of focus on how we can strengthen the data pool that we have. So we have minute level and daily level data across a long data collection period for each of the trials throughout the different years. And we are hoping that we can build some sort of machine learning or deep learning algorithm where we can essentially personalize treatments for these patients on the N-of-1 basis. If we are able to do this, we could potentially develop a tool set for physicians to be able to provide better care for their own patients, looking at kind of more prospective data and real-time data compared to what they would have done by patients' recollections of their own symptoms. Now, the challenges that definitely come with it, if we're looking at an N-of-1 level, we are reliant on participants or patients providing their data in the best of their capabilities. They need to provide us with their sleep data all the time, their physical data all the time, and their heart data all the time. If we have very sparse data and low adherence, even if we have a very kind of strong model, it might not produce the best results or the suggestions for their treatment. So that's kind of where the weakness lies, and we are kind of thinking of a way we can back this up. The cost and outputs for implementing marketplace tool sets, we have run into the consideration that we are able to do so as a hospital organization because we are a large hospital system. However, for exploratory purposes like the research trials, if using these tool sets are not the primary objective of the research trial, it's a little too costly to actually utilize. So with that being said, if we are able to implement this, the challenges then come with the regulations that come in play. Within state, it is the same organization or the same hospital site. The regulations are a little bit laxer because we have our own system and processes of working with HIPAA regulated data. However, if we're going cross organizations and cross hospital sites, this becomes a little trickier because different hospitals have different tool sets that they're using. So even within my organization, some hospitals use one type of electronic health record software while the others use a different one. So we are trying to currently kind of unify all of that. We have moved to the Epic software, and we're rolling that in through the different hospital sites one at a time to make sure everything is coming to play and and that we are able to further protect our data and utilize AI with it. So we, as of now, with the wearable technology devices, we have been kind of furthering our advancements with it. We are still looking for more participants in our trials as we're moving along, and this is the team that has been working with the end of one trials team. We are still growing. We have been utilizing Databricks to kind of help store our data, work with the data processing pipeline. So we are very thankful for that, to opening up the opportunity to kind of improve the workflow that we have been struggling with. So this is our team. This is our Dr. Karina Davidson. She's our director, and she has been kind of growing our organization. So she made a secondary division called the Quantitative Intelligence Team. So if you're interested in any potential internships with our team, we do have a visiting scholarship program, so please reach out to us if you are interested. This QR code is just the link here. It's about our team. And thank you, and if you have any questions, I will happily answer any of them. Yeah.
So this clinical trial itself is just to see if you can use wearable devices in clinical trials? Or is there a particular disease you're targeting?
Yeah, so this movement with our, at least the pilot trials, was to figure out how feasible it was to actually use these digital health technology devices within a long period of time across participants, and to see how accurate they would be. Since those pilot trials, we focused on a bit more other sensitive issues. So we are currently conducting what we call a MOMS program for pregnant women and we're actually collecting data from them on a longer time basis to see if we are able to kind of determine any certain health outcomes during that relevant to their pregnancy. So like severe maternal morbidity, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, good question. Like you said, in order to predict the PSA data, all of these hospitals have their fragmented tools, and there was a possibility for the PSA data, and then you guys integrated your tools to Epic. Is that what you and can you shed a light on how that kind of helped predict PSA data?
The thing is, a lot of hospital systems use various different tool sets to collect electronic health information, physicians' notes. Even for us, we use two different softwares across the different sites. It's just been a long time since anyone has actually tried to unify it into a singular format. And our company has decided to join on using Epic, which has been kind of the larger power source of all the electronic health record softwares. And the reason why we are looking into this is to, one, simplify the data pool and the data lake storages. And the other reason is because they have their own integration of being able to kind of work with data, cleaning up the data to be able to use in machine learning use cases.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What kind of automated data cleaning techniques were you using?
Yeah, so the first time we actually kind of actively started looking into this was to use the APIs from our third-party service called Database that we were exporting data from, and through Python coding, we used Jupyter notebooks at the time when we first kind of had a smaller team, and we had a smaller kind of participant pool set with the 60, so we were able to kind of test that out. And it was just object-oriented programming, just kind of pulling the data through and just rapidly cleaning all the batches of participants that had data, that had just finished data collection process. Right now, what we are looking into is actually using Databricks to be kind of setting up that workflow so that it's less manual, even with that object-oriented programming, so that we can just set up a workflow, click schedule, and it should automatically do it for us. Yeah.
How long did the end of one trials last for?
Okay, so for the first three, the chronic lower back pain, fatigue, and the sleep duration studies, data collection was for 14 periods, but the entire process wasn't the full 3 months, and a little bit longer depending on how fast they responded to satisfaction surveys and the follow-up interviews. Yeah.
Did you find that participants stayed in the study longer using the end of one method versus like having to go into a clinic weekly or whatever? Did you see a difference in drop
Yeah,
off?
so a lot of our approaches work basically hands-off. Even the surveys, we just send them via like email or text messages depending on their preference. So we didn't have them come into the office at all. And they did stay longer and they expressed like they favored that kind of approach compared to actively having to go into a research office space and having to see a physician.
So where are you located at?
So my office is in New York State. Our team has gone fully remote, so a few of our team members are across the entire United States.
Thank you, everyone. And let's